Later.
Sure.
Okay.
So
Thank you. Sorry.
no worries. So we're talking. So the pandemic, forced a lot of businesses that were able to pivot to online operations, and those that had a business that was able to really started to thrive and succeed last year. So we want to talk a little bit about how that how that affected people, what trends that's caused going into 2021, how people are still using that, and how those organizations are pivoting to a digital strategy, whether it's for sales in general or even if it's just lead generation. Because basically what it's done is business owners used to be able to take digital marketing as a nice to do. If I have time, I'll get on Facebook. If I have time, I'll set up my Google My Business listing. If I have time, I'll update my website and make sure my information is correct. Um, but now that if I have time, that nice to do is now a requirement, because that's how everybody's being forced to get their information. So we'll talk a little bit about today about the 6 lessons we learned from 2020. So what you'll see is this isn't just lessons that we learned in my agency here in West Virginia. These are actually going to be combined lessons from thousands of businesses across the country that have been combined by some of our partners from Constant Contact. So we'll talk about those lessons, what we see. We'll talk about some real world examples of how some small businesses were able to pivot last year, how some were able to embrace digital and really help themselves move forward, and the trends that come out of that, so that you can use those trends to take action for your business in 2021. So I know some of you, I don't know all of you, so I'll just give you a quick introduction. My name is Mike Roofing. I'm founder of Problem Solvers Consultants. We're a digital marketing agency for small businesses based in Buchanan, West Virginia. We're in the new Idea Center downtown. So for the last decade plus, I've spent my time and my agency's time working with small business owners to get their digital marketing right, based off of the almost 20 years I spent in corporate marketing with Circuit City and Advanced Auto Parts. So that's a little bit about my background and what I do. So let's talk about the lessons that we learned in 2020. I think that this has been a key for anybody who's ever been successful going back to the beginning of time. You can't be afraid to try something new. One of the first things that somebody taught me way back when I first started working in the corporate world is they said the worst thing you can ever hear is we do it that way because that's the way we've always done it. And that clicked and made sense to me, because doing something just because we've always done it that way doesn't make sense. If it's no longer working, if it's something that I don't know if it's working, then I should want to try something new to find out exactly what's going to happen. COVID forced a lot of people into that, right? If you've always done, in person, if you've always been a brick and mortar, if you've always been show up at my shop, COVID kind of chuckled a little bit, threw its head back and said, good luck with that. Hold my beer. And that's pretty much what happened, and a lot of people tried to stay open until the state or other people told them they had to close. Some people decided they were going to try it anyway. And the reality of it is 80 or 90% of those people didn't have to do it that way. That was just the way they've always done it. That was their comfort zone. That was where they wanted to be. And a lot of those people struggled after that. So we use some of the examples. So yoga is a great example. So this presentation deck has one for Afroflow Yoga, but there's actually a yoga studio here in Buchanan, Vinyasa Yoga. And they did a very similar thing to what these folks did, is they pivoted all of what used to be in-person yoga classes at their studio that's right down the street from our office, and they moved them all to virtual classes. They also spent the time, they put together an email list to make sure that they could tell everybody when the next classes were, because previously that information was always simple, right? You were in class, the next class is Tuesday at 9:00. So you just knew when it was. So they had to change a lot of their strategy to be able to get people to come back. And then as they've changed the way that they've done things, as they've been allowed to have more people in, they've actually found that now that they're offering both virtual and in-person classes, a lot of people are choosing to stay the virtual route for whatever reason. They don't want to travel back and forth. They don't want to, some people don't like to be around a lot of other people. before they didn't necessarily have that option, and now they're seeing both. So it's interesting to see the way that the pivot has caused people to kind of reassess and things that they never would have asked for. As a consumer, you're not necessarily going to go to your yoga instructor and say, hey, I'm really, don't like to have to drive 20 minutes each way because I happen to live, up 33 a little bit, but I don't want to come in. Would you consider doing these virtually for me? Like, you would just never have that conversation, right? It just wouldn't come out of you that way. But now that it's an option, there's a lot of people that are going, hey, this is pretty good. I can set up my yoga mat at home. I can tell my wife is a person who doesn't like to do anything that makes her sweat with other people. So to me, like, this makes perfect sense. So, like, she hates going to the gym, so she tries to find times at the gym when no one else is there. So she wouldn't do yoga because she doesn't want to be in a room full of other people, and hot yoga would just be a hot mess. So we're not even going to go there. But this would be an example where she would love this, and she would be a potential customer that a yoga studio wouldn't have gotten had they not pivoted and not continued to offer that virtual option. Because had they chosen to just, hey, the restrictions the guidelines have been toned down. We're allowed to have 15 people with social distancing within our yoga studio, so let's just start signing up people for in-person classes again, and we're going to stop the virtual classes. They would have lost what they gained from last year. So I think that's one of the key things, is being able to look at what other business owners have done, because obviously this works for a yoga studio and things that would be like that. But most other businesses have some form of pivot that they can do to really be successful online. So one of the things that a lot of people miss is, when we pre-pandemic, most people didn't take into account what their customer or their clients wanted, right? Has anybody done a survey of their clients just to see what they wanted for any particular thing? This is the interactive portion.
Right. I know the chamber, and what I find in my own everything, everybody just wants to be together. They don't want to do the virtual gathering anymore. They want to be in person when they gather. But how do you find out what's what? You have to have online. You have to be able to, like yesterday, I couldn't find a business's address anywhere. I didn't even know what state they were in, but my cousin who's here promoted it, and I'm like, well, it has to be somewhere, but what county are they even in? I had no idea. And so privately offline, we discussed, and the person was like, oh my gosh, I just thought everybody, I mean, they know me. I just thought they'd know where I was. And I was like, oh, yikes. Okay. No, you gotta, and it's all because of what I learned in January. You have to make sure that not only your about section, but your posts, your everywhere people can find you in that map. I know that was not to answer your question. I should have known that when you asked for responses, that you never knew what you're going to get. But the whole making sure that you're available regardless of anything, that's the most important thing.
That is true. And a lot of times, like I said, we get caught up in what we do, but finding out what people need, like, so I'll use us as an example and see if maybe this helps anybody else. So what we'll do is, we want to find out, we spend a lot of time and energy creating blogs to educate business owners on what they can do within the marketing space, like what we do. So we could sit here and we could pound out blog posts about what we do all day long. But one of the things we'll do is we'll send out a survey, or we'll put a poll together and ask people, what do you want to know about? What's important to you? And we may send the poll out with 3 or 4 different choices. Do you want to learn about how to use Google My Business for your small business? Do you want to learn, 2 or 3 things SEO wise that you don't have to be a coder to perform, that any small business owner can do? Give them another option of, how to properly target your social media ads so that you don't waste money on your ad spend. And then we'll send that out, and we'll gather back feedback from people on what they want to see. Same thing for webinars like this. A lot of times, if we have an audience that we're specifically trying to talk to try to help, we'll send out an email to them, or a survey or a poll, and just ask them, here's 5 webinars that we have. Which webinars would you think would be valuable to you? What type of information do you want to see? How does that how would these impact you? Because if you put out things that nobody wants to see, then you're basically wasting your time and your energy. And the same thing can happen in your business. If you were an ice cream shop and you're considering 3 new flavors, but you can only bring in one, what's the best way to know which one's going to sell? You send out a survey and say, hey, these are 3 potential new flavors. Which one would you like to see? And you bring in the one that does the best.
Mike, I noticed that there is a restaurant that's in Buchanan, and it's a new restaurant, and they had some complaints about their menu because it was different than the people who were there beforehand. And they sent out a survey saying, what do you prefer? And then they made some changes to their menu based on that. But today I noticed they just sent out stating, which type of salad do you want? You want pasta or potato? So as people are answering those questions, they'll make a change to their menu because this is a new item that they're adding, and they'll be able to go through that way and see what is going to be a seller instead of just trying to put it out there and somebody says, I wish you really would have done potato instead of pasta because I would have wanted that. So yeah. I do think there's value in that, especially nowadays.
Well, and Susie, you bring up an interesting point, right? I think most business owners, when they start, spend a lot of time on this because they're concerned to make sure that they get off the ground. They want to get people's feedback. I think when you really see these things, the entrenchment and we've always done it that way. For some reason along the way, we lose that. We lose the want to find out what our customers want. At some point, I think we almost say like, well, we know what our customers want, so I don't have to ask anymore. And I think that's where trying new things comes in.
Right. And I think that this is almost that kind of reverse, because some of the complaints of the places, this is not what used to be.
Mm-hmm. So
why are you different? And so this new owner is trying to do different things, but she's running up against that wall. This is not how it used to be.
Yeah.
So it again, but how I look at it too, and Michael, if I need to stop talking, tell me. I also look at it this way as being an opportunity of having interaction with your customer because you care.
Yeah.
And it shows that you care. So why wouldn't I want to go to a place that cares about what I want?
It's building that relationship and trust, right? If you ask my opinion and then I see you do something with it, that entrenches you and it puts us in a relationship where you seem to care about what I want. And that's important. So the second thing that we learned from last year is stay in touch and top of mind. I spent some time earlier talking about, we had these nice to do things, and it was, hey, I have some extra time. Let me send out an email campaign, or, hey, we're going to do a Christmas shopping, promo. So I'm going to put together an email campaign and send this out. Hey, I have a couple of minutes. Let me take a picture of this new product that I got in and I'll post it on Facebook. And those nice to-dos now, they're required, right? Everybody who's pivoted and everybody who's been successful through the pandemic and in 2020, they're continuing those same things in 2021 by making sure that they're over communicating to people. Because once you're no longer physically in the same space, you have to make sure that you communicate to people in a way that they understand. And everybody understands differently, and everybody needs different amounts of reminders. I have one of my longest standing clients, and he's the nicest guy in the world. He's been successful in running multiple businesses. Now he's a multi-franchise owner, and we have a monthly recurring meeting that's the second Tuesday of every month at 10:30. If I don't send, now mind you, if for anybody who uses a calendar on Outlook or Gmail or anywhere, a monthly recurring invite shows up on your calendar and it's always there. You can look and see when that meeting is going to be for the next 12 months. If I don't email him the day before and text him the morning of, he will miss the meeting. So when I say over communicate, some people hear, yeah, but my customers don't want to hear from me X amount of times. My customers, I already told them about that promo. Like they already heard it. I already posted that 3 times on Facebook. Like everybody knows. And what I try to get business owners to understand when it comes to digitally communicating is don't take for granted the fact that you're biased because you see every single message. You see every email, you see every Facebook post, You see every time you post on LinkedIn, you see the landing page on your website that you build for your product, your service, whatever. You look at your stuff all the time to make sure your website's up, and you get over conditioned to think, man, I communicate this very, very well. When the reality is 80% of your emails don't get opened. So the people that you sent them to never saw that message. If you have 1,000 followers on Facebook and you post, maybe 100 of them will see it. So 90% of your audience never saw the message. Your website has decent traffic, but out of all the potential customers that you have, you'll be lucky if 15% of them happen to see your message on your website. And the same thing with Google, LinkedIn, Instagram, anywhere else that you are. No matter what you do, I honestly don't believe you can over communicate to your customer. And I think that's something that most small business owners struggle with, because they feel like they say too much, they post too much, they do too much, and they think that their customer is going to get annoyed with them. And the reality is that most of them, if you actually polled them, and we've done this before, we've actually reached out to a set of consumers, and we surveyed 1,000 consumers and asked them if they thought that brands communicated, that small business brands, we eliminated the Targets of the world, the Walmarts of the world, because they send out 400 messages, and we all know that. But it's funny, nobody unsubscribes from them. So keep that in the back of your mind too. But anyway, so we sent a poll or a survey to 1,000 consumers and asked them about small business brands, and gave them 3 choices. Do small business brands under communicate, communicate just right, or over communicate? And overwhelmingly, 87% of the people said small business brands under communicate. And I think that that's really telling, that the consumer says, hey, the small business brands, the ones where I know people personally, my favorite coffee shop, my favorite restaurant, my favorite place to buy clothes locally, everybody that goes out and posts support local small business, they feel like those local small businesses don't communicate nearly enough with them. So we can see, this is an example of a client that actually goes through and sends email campaigns about days that it rains, where they can't be in or out, where they have to be in studio. Making sure that you communicate schedules, if there's any changes to when your business is open, if you have any issues. One of the things that I saw that I thought was really interesting was I saw an entire campaign go out, email, social media, and a website update for a small business that was a one-person show that does business person to person, like in center, in location. They sent out a mass communication campaign to let everybody know that they were going to be closed for 2 hours because they were going to get their COVID vaccine. So they accomplished a lot of things with that, right? They communicated so people didn't show up when they were closed. They showed that they cared about the people's health and well-being. They're going to get a vaccine for them. So they've taken social issues, they've taken a schedule change, they've done all these things, and they've accomplished them with one communications campaign across multiple different platforms to make sure that no matter where you follow them, no matter how you keep in touch with them, even if it's a text message campaign, and say, hey, we're going to be closed from 12 to 2, I'm going to get my COVID vaccine so that we can better, be better prepared to make sure we're all happy, healthy, and whatnot. So I thought that was really interesting as far as communication wise. So we talked about reaching customers where they are. Making sure you have a multi-channel communication strategy is more important than ever. And then, like I said, the downside to that is make sure you don't get burnt out of the communication, because just because you see all these things, the vast majority of your audience doesn't. Now, the caveat to that will be your spouse probably sees it all. Your mom, dad, brother, sister, they're probably going to see it all and say, hey, you're sending a lot of this stuff. But that's because they follow you, their family, they're trying to help you and be part of what you do. You need to find a consumer group that, maybe your best customers, and see and ask them, how does this feel? Are we emailing you too much? Are we saying too much? And you'll be surprised that most of them will tell you that you're either right on target, or they would like to see and hear from you more. And then watch your stats. That's another telling thing, right? So you can see, your reach on social media. You can see how many people open your email campaigns when you send out an email, whether it's via Constant Contact, MailChimp, whatever you choose to use. Monitor those stats and see. You can actually see if you start sending 3 emails a day, you'll start to see that your open rates and your engagement rates will start to drop. If you start sending twice a week, you may find that sweet spot. And then you can see, hey, all of a sudden now you're top of mind. So people are looking for your emails. They want to know about your specials. They want to know what you have going on. So all of a sudden, now that it's not once a month and it didn't just get thrown into spam, if you're providing that value, your stats will show you when you hit that sweet spot. So I'm going to stop here. We're just about the halfway point and see if anybody has any questions or anything they want to talk about with the things we've covered so far. It was really just an excuse for me to get a drink, but if somebody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Mike Rhett Dusenberry with Congressman Maney's office. Just to what we're seeing now is a big push with the Chamber of Commerce and also the school systems to enhance the vocational education in our school systems, because a lot of kids don't want to go to college. They want to stay in somewhere like West Virginia and learn a trade and have their own business. I know that these little coders and gurus can run circles around your average 50-year-old person, because we grew up in the days of the walkie-talkies that you ran around behind the garage and communicated. But I just didn't know if you had thought about reaching out to the school systems and giving these kids in the vocational area that are thinking about doing this stuff. I don't have to tell anybody on this call. Have you tried to get a plumber or an electrician? This would be some great training for those guys. And I'm sure they know how to do it all pretty much, but to tweak it and target it like your business does. Have you thought about doing that?
I haven't, but I'm definitely open to pursuing that. And I think that would be great.
Okay. I only charge 5%. So no, I'm joking. No, it's like you said, I heard a statistic riding down the road the other day that 52% of the people that are working from home now, if they have to go back into the office and drive the haul 25 miles in the morning to go into the office, they're going to look for another job.
Yep. Because
they said the platform has already made the transition to the point that, they'll be able to find something because now they're proficient at the model. And also one of the things that worries me too is we want the kids to get back together for a better education and also a wholesome social experience. But, it's one of these things now that we have done the educational model online. I started seeing a lot more people doing that, staying at home, keeping their kids at home or whatever, or putting them in another unit. And I hope we don't end up having a whole bunch of buildings with long-term municipal bonds, et cetera, on on these buildings that we have air conditioning and heat so they don't start molding. But I don't think that'll be a situation. But this platform is going to enhance education and business. And I appreciate you doing this for us as well.
100% my pleasure. And I think that's, you raised some really good concerns. And this is a personal opinion, is I think that school is one thing that still is best handled in person because it's hard to really convey training. Just this webinar is a perfect example. I would much rather have you folks sitting in a room with me so that if you had questions, if we needed to do things, we could pull them up. We could, you could show me things on your phone or on your computer. There's still something to be said for in person, especially when it comes to learning and training. The backside of that, the buildings, I'm probably one of the people who's not concerned about the buildings, because what you're going to see is a lot of the businesses that find out that most, if not all of their workforce can be remote, they're going to give up a lot of that commercial property. But what's going to happen is a lot of the places that are expanding housing, they're going to turn those into condos. And instead of having to, to purchase additional property and do these different things, you already have an infrastructure that's built for a lot of that. And we're just going to repurpose those in a way that can help solve some housing problems and some of the housing cost issues, because a lot of that stuff was money that was spent by big businesses that could afford it. And now they're going to be able to repurpose that money elsewhere. So I think that that's going to be an interesting thing that comes out of this as well, with the ability for more people to work remote.
And again, I think that when we're sitting back talking about small businesses, with what all Michael's trying to go back through and show us here, is that people are still going to want to touch and feel and look and see, but it's not going to necessarily be in a big space. They're going to want to go to a main street. I mean, I see revitalization of main streets happening. And again, going back to what you were saying, Michael, is some of those big buildings turning into condos. Now people can walk down the street to a mom and pop restaurant, or to a craft brewery, or to a boutique, just because it's well within walking distance, and it gives people an opportunity of being in a smaller space with fewer number of people being there. And that to me still means everything that you're talking about, because we've got to tell people we are here, we are open, and we are vibrant.
I agree. So we'll talk a little bit about doing more business online. So we've all seen it, right? There's a large percentage of people that are tied to trying to help small businesses. 70% of consumers say they visit small business at least once a month. 60% say that they make an effort to support local organizations, but only 10% need to visit a physical store. I thought that was interesting, and I think that's a significant shift to what things used to be. And a lot of times these are talking about specific smaller purchases. You're not talking about large contracts or buying a car. Although with some of the car buying online now, where they deliver it to you, there are people that are buying cars with hands off and not having to purchase. So I think that's a consumer shift that's hard for a lot of people to buy into and to understand, because we've been doing this for so long that we know how we feel. And a lot of times we let our personal bias, and just so we're clear, bias is not a bad thing. Bias is something that everybody has based on their life experience and the way that they're brought up. But our bias stops us from understanding, because me personally, I'm never going to buy a car without physically going to the dealership, seeing the car, test driving the car, checking it out, seeing how it's built, because there are things that I care about, because I did marketing in the automotive industry for over a decade. So I want to see, it's easy for a car to look really good on a TV commercial or to look really good on my computer screen. It's another thing to sit in it and feel the cheapness of the plastic, of the glove box and of the center console and of the door panels, knowing that my son is going to kick those door panels 742 times a week. And I know the first thing that's going to happen is I'm just going to see these scratches in this cheap plastic that's going to bug the heck out of me for the 5 years that I own this car. Not that I've ever had that happen and I have to look in the back of my Equinox and see it all the time. But those are things that I don't think are ever going to go away, but that's a personal bias of mine. Like I said, you look at Carzuma, you look at Carvana, and there are multi-million-dollar organizations that are turning a profit, because there are people younger than me, and I'm going to be 38, that will buy a car 100% online and have it flatbedded to their door. Never see it in person, complete all the paperwork, fill out the loan application, get approved, never leave their living room, and the car will be delivered to their door. That is a business model that currently works. And we're only going to move more in that direction.
Well, we've got one of those models working right here in West Virginia. If you talk to realtors, they will tell you that people from big cities and up north and everywhere, they will call down here and say, do you have 3 or 4 acres out in the woods, a camp that I can buy? And they'll go, yeah, and it costs this much. So we've got multiple offers on it, and they will buy it for more than what the listing is and never even set foot on it until they come down. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I think the key is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said it's already happening.
Yeah. So, and the key is what it says at the bottom. So make it easy for them to find you and do business and support you. Ashley, you talked about it earlier. You have to be able to find the business. You have to know where they're at. We talked a lot about that in January, but that's still probably the number one issue, is because it's a little more work for us as business owners, we don't always make it easy for people to support us and do business with us. We kind of get that little stubborn attitude of, well, this is the way that I do it, and if you don't want to do it that way, then don't buy from me. And that's not going to work with the choices that people have out there today. So talk a little bit about Treat Cupcake Bar. You would think that this would be a business, right? It's a bakery. They make cupcakes. This is a physical, tangible good that goes bad very quickly. I mean, cupcakes are generally only good for a couple of days, maybe. So you would think that this would be something where you absolutely have to be in person. You have to show up at the bakery and you have to do things only this way. They figured out a way to build a website online to make sure they can share the ordering details online. They connected it to social media. They built email campaigns, and they turned everything into a virtual purchase experience except for contactless pickup. This is a big change, a fundamental change in the way that they think. And this is something they never did before. Small business owners, like I said, sometimes even something as simple as, hey, I need to have my digital storefront. I have to have my website up. To a lot of businesses that have had really good success with word of mouth, or really good success with having a prime location, they've kind of said, hey, everything's going well. That's something that I can do when I get a chance. Now you don't have that choice. You have to create a website if you don't have one. You have to have that digital, that digital billboard or that digital storefront. If you do have one and you haven't touched it, you have to make sure that it's easy to use, that people know what they're looking for, that they know what you expect them to do. Make sure that if there's a way for you to pivot and sell your products or services online, or at the very least, if you can't complete a sale online, you should at least be able to generate a lead of some sort or get their contact information to be able to start that buying process. And make sure that you use your email list, your social media, that you're driving people back to that online storefront, because a lot of those people, like we said, they're still not necessarily comfortable coming out. They don't want to visit somewhere unless they have to. The pivot isn't going to change. All those people that want to work from home, all those people that like to do those things, they want to support local businesses, but it has to be easy. If Amazon is the easier answer, they're going to choose it, because that's we're creatures of habit, right? We always try to do what's easiest, what's least time consuming for us, what works best for us, because individually, at our core, selfish isn't necessarily the right word, but we think about our wants and needs before we think about others. I mean, barring children maybe, but for the vast majority of us, you think about what's easier and faster for you. So Ashley, just as an example, right? So you're at the coffee shop. If somebody put in the same or better coffee with a drive-through window where you didn't have to get out, you were always in a hurry to get by, would you use the drive-through window?
I'm unique. Surprise.
Yeah.
I want to come in and I want that interaction. I don't do I haven't done fast food in 10 or more years. So because I want real quality anything, and it's hard to get quality when you can drive through. But I need that
quality being the same. Another small business owner, same type. Let's say they have the exact same coffee bean. They make the exact same coffee. One has a drive-through window to get you where you need to go. One doesn't.
If I'm in a hurry, absolutely, I will drive through that drive-through.
Yep. And I think that's where we kind of lose sight of some folks, is we are always thinking about maybe necessarily what's best for us instead of what's best for the consumer. And I think that's where we really have to focus, is you still want to give quality product, right? Because that's where you see the differentiator. Like you brought up fast food as an example. McDonald's was notorious for that. When they first made food, McDonald's had good hamburgers and good food. The quality of the food as they started to franchise and expand is what changed, because their entire mission was fast food. They were about getting people in and out and about making cheap food. And all of a sudden the quality of the food didn't matter. And we have to figure out a way. Go ahead.
I was going to say, your point is exactly, you have to provide both options, especially now. Like we learned that last year. There's going to be people like me who I want to come inside. I want you to know that I'm supporting you. I want to talk to you. How can I help you? And I want that. But then you're going to have Nick, my husband. Heck yeah, he'll drive through every daggone time. He's not going to stop and come in, and because he gets in the car and he's comfortable and he doesn't. But so we have to provide both options for people. Yep.
100%.
Mike,
Susie, did you have something?
And some of those biases that you were talking about earlier, Mike, and going back to what you were talking about, as with your coffee shop, that owner may know why they wanted to use a drive-through. So that is a bias of theirs, but they figure that there's other people that have that same bias that would make it a reasonable accommodation for their business to be able to do.
100%.
hey, Mike,
Yeah.
can you go back one slide? Right here, when it says create a website or refresh your sell product service, use email, social drive, business, or website. Something that came to mind that I have seen several times, that the businesses are not protecting themselves when it comes to their exclusive ownership of not only the domain name, but also certain rights of administration. I mean, I've seen some folks that didn't know who the administrator was, didn't know how to get a password to update the website. And then I've also heard situations where the person that generated the website kept all the stuff, and it was kind of like website extortion. They were well, if you want me to update it, you got to pay for me to host it and all this other stuff. And it's just another nasty aspect of some people doing business. But I think when it comes to when you're creating your website and your product, not only do you need to protect yourself on those copyright, patent, whatever, but also on all this other stuff when it comes to it. Because like you said, here's your marketplace.
Right.
And
again, that's got to be the due diligence that small business owners have to get used to, because we used to do things on handshakes and we trusted people. And you're right, Rhett, that we've got to absolutely make sure that business owners do their due diligence to understand where's the ownership whenever they're signing contracts, what all is happening in regards to this. I agree.
Well, and I promised the chamber there would be no sales pitches in this, but Red, I can't help but tell you it's very common in our business. It's that's how that's how the industry as a whole retains clients, is by the intellectual property remains with the agency. And I'm not a huge fan of that. Anybody who knows me, Susie and some other folks that I've talked to, that's one of the reasons why I structured the business the way that I did. Any intellectual property, once you pay us to build a website, you've paid for that intellectual property, in my opinion. Same thing with domain names, different things like that. We actually help clients set up their own accounts with, a domain
GoDaddy
host.
or whatever.
Yep. And allow them so that they always have access to it. And that so they're the owner and they give us just the ability to work on it when they need us to. But that, like I said, that's the end of my sales pitch. That's just what I believe personally, because that's how I got into this. Is I had friends that were taken advantage of by agencies that were what I'll call less than reputable. And, I've seen firsthand what that can do to people. And I mean, pardon the way I say it, but it's just stupid. Like if you pay me to do something for you, you've paid for it. You now own it. You wouldn't go and pay somebody to make you a wood carving and then have them say, hey, take a picture of it and take the picture home because it's my property. I'm keeping it. Like, it's just, to me, it's the only industry that operates that way. But I wish I could tell you that it was, that it was illegal or even immoral, but the industry as a whole, the vast majority, that's how they operate. And even from a website creation standpoint, they won't even let you the ability to update your own website. You have to pay them every time. That's just the way that it is.
Yeah, you'd hate to have to call me to come dust your wood carving every once a month. You couldn't dust it, and you can't have anybody else dust it. And if you do, I'll be calling the lawyers. No, I apologize. I wasn't even expecting you to do your pitch, and I apologize about sliding us into
No, you're good.
ethics online. But
yeah,
it's just something I wanted to contribute, because It's sad. It's sad. If somebody would make you feel better about how they were looking out for you and your product and everything you've done, you'll pass their name on and say, hey, this dude's awesome. But the second they try and say, well, I own the domain name or whatever, then you're like going, oh, that's just gone south,
Huh. And 100%, like I said, it's not something that I don't think is right either. And it's the industry itself is so new and unregulated. There's very little other than some of the old carryover, like advertising things of what you can and can't show online. Really all they did was migrate from television. There's really no regulation in the industry to provide consumer protection. I mean, I'm on the board of the Better Business Bureau, and it's one of the number one things that we fight right now across all industries, whether it's car dealers or advertising agencies or anybody else, is the digital consumer protection. So that's one of the biggest things. I do agree with you. So, and it's good for people to know because
if you ever need an enforcer, Susie's got a dog named Musket. They'll take care of them.
So the fourth thing we're going to talk about is collecting and take action on customer data. We touched on this before with the surveys and finding out what's in there. Making sure that we talked about those contact points, right? One of the ways that you can guarantee that you don't over communicate is making sure that you separate out what people want to know from you, right? So this happens to be an example of a flower shop or a garden farm that offers different types of things. They offer flowers, herbs, spice blends, organic tea blends, special offers. What they're doing is they're allowing people to tell them, hey, what do you want information about? And I bring this up to show you because you can gather a lot of information from people that allows you to really care about the information that you send them and how you communicate. And it's actually so, Ray, you talked about her dog, right? So a perfect example would be if I owned a pet store and everybody in this room was on my mailing list. And I found out through this that Susie has a dog and 3 cats. And Susie, I know you have cats, but I don't know how many. So hopefully I'm not too wrong. But let's say Susie has a dog and 3 cats. See, I guessed perfect. And she has a dog and 3 cats. And every week I send Susie an email telling her about this great new bird food that I carry. How long do you think Susie's going to keep opening my email? It's not very long, right? And I can see everybody shaking their head and trying to talk while they're muted. But so most of the time, that's what happens. But we don't take advantage of the fact that there's an easy way, no matter how you keep track of your customers, whether it's through your POS system in your business, whether it's through your email service provider like Constant Contact or MailChimp or whoever, or maybe you just have what we call a CRM, a customer relationship manager. Whether it's a HubSpot or whatever software you use, everybody keeps track of customers somehow. There's a notes section to make sure you communicate to them things that are relevant to them. If I'm a dog owner, send me stuff that relates to being a dog owner. And if I do happen to be a bird owner, my wife would murder me because she's deathly afraid of birds. But then send me stuff about birds. And if I do happen to click this link right here that says, hey, I'm just general interest, I love everything about your flowers, your herbs, your tea blends, like you are just fantastic. And I want to know everything about you. Then, okay, then you can send me everything. But that's the quickest way to get people to no longer pay attention and or to have them tell you that you over communicate and potentially unsubscribe from your email list, your text message list, however you're keeping in contact with your customers, is to not care about the value that you're providing. So we can talk a little bit about this is the email that they put together. They use their data to create an easy way for people to subscribe and only get the information that they wanted. So they send the fresh from the farm section to people that are looking specifically for those things. They make sure that everybody that's going to buy online, maybe they want the buy online announcement email, and they let everybody know what it is.
So Mike, in that particular situation, if people start unsubscribing when we don't know the reasons why, do you know who unsubscribes or you just know somebody unsubscribed typically? Like if you were sending me bird stuff and I unsubscribed, would you know that Susie stopped seeing my emails?
If you're using an email service provider like Constant Contact, yes, I know who unsubscribes.
Okay.
Name and email. So one of the things I think, and this is probably one of the biggest things that I find when we talk to new business owners, is collect emails at every touch point. And I'll even go a step further. Obviously, this is through our partners, so they're an email service provider, so they talk about collecting emails at every touch point. But I would say go even further. Collect contact information and the approval to reach out to them and contact them that way at every single touch point that you can. Whether you sign them up for a loyalty rewards program so that you can get their email address and their cell phone number. Text message campaigns are huge. I mean, if somebody's really engaged in your brand and is really going to buy from you, they're going to tell you, yeah, sure. As long as you don't abuse it, text me and email me and let me know when something comes up. Use the reporting features, whether it's with your text service, with email marketing, whatever it is, and make sure because like I said, it's a great way for you can very quickly see if your open rates and engagement rates drop, you're probably doing something wrong. You're either not sending me stuff that I care about, maybe your subject line was wrong and it kind of turned me off. Maybe you're sending me too much stuff. Maybe you're not sending me enough stuff. I mean, that's another one. If I buy something from a brand, and I see this happen all the time, if I go in somewhere new and I have a pretty good experience, nothing super bad, nothing super good, but it was a positive experience and I would consider going back. And then I don't hear from them for 7 months. And then, or even better, my favorite is when people put up a year after your service, hey, why don't you come back and try us again? Like, why didn't you email me 4 weeks later? Like, I need a pedicure every 4 weeks. Like, why did you wait a year to send me an email? Like, I mean, seriously, you left. That's the thing. I got an email from a resort one time inviting me back to the spa a year after I was there. Nothing in between.
I was laughing at you getting pedicures every 4 weeks.
Hey, now,
that's what was
come on
funny
now.
right there.
You have to take care of your feet. I don't care what anybody says. I'm at a standing desk right now. You have to take care of your feet.
Anybody can pamper themselves,
100%.
Well, how about, have you ever thought about this, Mike? Something, whenever somebody hits a link and goes to a web page, boom, they get the information. Have you ever thought about doing it kind of like the old brand style, like the greeter thing? Bam, they hit your web page. Hi, my name's Mike Ruffin and I run Problem Solvers. I just wanted to tell you, thank you for checking out our product and thank you for using us. If you do, please utilize the comment section at the bottom and give us any information or likes or dislikes. And just want to say thanks. And now if you hit the proceed button, you go around to the website. You'll have a nice day. Boom. And right there, that's the greeter Walmart touchy-feely thing. And I've never seen that. Has anybody ever seen that before? I mean,
there's a lot of different ways to do it. Sometimes, so the only issue you have if you do it is kind of like with the greeter mentality when somebody comes to your website is you haven't created enough value for them to fill it out because they just got there, right? They don't necessarily know you. So one of the things that you'll see that I think is along the similar lines is what's called an exit intent pop-up. So let's say you read an entire one of my blog posts and I gave you 6 different ways that, just like this, 6 lessons learned in 2021. If I had this as a blog post on our website, and what it does is when somebody reads over half of that blog post or when somebody scrolls all the way to the bottom, when they go up and click on that little red X and exit, a little box comes up and pops up and says, hey, we hope you enjoyed and found value in the content. If you would, why don't you sign up for our email list, put in your name and your email address here, and then we'll obviously let you know anytime more of these valuable blogs come up. I think it's a little tweak on that because it's more the exit person, not the greeter. But once you've created the value, I think you've absolutely earned the right to ask them if they found this valuable to let us contact you.
Coupons.
Coupons, always coupons.
Yeah.
So
free shipping today, guys. On the 6-day-old cupcakes.
Only 6-day-old cupcakes. and we'll ship them UPS ground for 4 days.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is another thing that I see most small business owners struggle with, is making sure that you tell your story. I can't tell you how many small business owners that I talk to, even small business owners that work with us. I get lots of emails back that I'll give you a perfect example. We had a client based in Fairmont, and we started doing some work for them. We updated their website. We were putting together a marketing campaign. We were doing social media for them. And I literally got an email from the owner of the company and his son. And his email said to me, I really like the work that you guys are doing, but we can't go forward with this because we feel like we're tooting our own horn and we're not those kind of people. And my response back was, if you don't tell your story, nobody else is going to. And if you're not going to let us tell your story, because we're an objective third party, right? We're telling you things just based on our observation, things that you do well, things that you do better than your competitors. And we're turning that in and we're telling your story based on that. If that makes you feel uncomfortable, then you need to get out of your comfort zone, because that's the reality of the situation. Has anybody seen the commercial where they go through and they say like world's most okayest pizza shop or whatever it is? Like if that's how you write your content because you're afraid to toot your own horn, and you say, yeah, we're okay, come check us out. Who in their right mind is going there? Like, if you don't think you're the best at what you do, we are not doing business together. And if you're not, get out, find something else to do. Like, if you don't think you're the best, or at least trying to be the best, and you're not putting in that much effort, you should shut your business down and quit. That's just the God's honest truth.
I have the same discussion with my clients most of the time, because I always tell everybody, if you can't tell everybody how good you are and what your expertise is and how you deal with things, nobody else is going to know. So you do have to toot your own horn.
Yep.
I had somebody the other day trying to put together a business plan to go after financing, and they didn't want to tell the lender that's going to be reading this about what an expert they are at their field. And I said, then you're not going to get any money. You have to make sure people understand that you believe in what you're doing. And if you believe in what you're doing, then you are going to have to tout your horn for people to know that you have the expertise, you have the drive, and you have the passion for what you have.
Well, and it's also hard because people don't understand. And I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen when I share the screen or not, but I'm circling the social media post here at the top where it says the Concord Cheese Shop. So most small businesses don't have the brand recognition to have that know, like, and trust with the brand. We're not Target. You're not Coca-Cola. Like, when you see that little white polar bear rolling around in the snow, like, you're waiting for him to open a bottle of Coke and drink it. Like, what's coming. But they have brand recognition of billions of dollars and 5 decades worth of advertising. Chances are your small business doesn't have either one, let alone both. But every business owner wants to focus on the brand of engaging as the Concord Cheese Shop, when nobody trusts that brand to the extent that they do. And I get that a lot too, is, well, this brand advertises this way. And you don't understand that you don't have that billions of dollars and 50 years of backing to do that. But now this particular post does a really good job, right? So it's telling about a product that they sell, but they personalize it, right? Our very own Meg has been making our quiches from scratch at the deli. So you're talking about a person, you've personalized it. This woman's name is Meg. Meg is working her butt off behind there, making quiche, which is hard, right? Because quiches can fall, the eggs can be bad. Like, it's hard to make quiche. And everything is made from scratch, and it has a homemade crust. We customize to your taste. We care about you as a customer. And they come with this adorable box that says enjoy underneath. They personalize this while still selling a product. These are things that people miss. I can't tell you how many times I would see this post, and all you would see is a picture of this quiche that says today's feature, quiche. And then they'll tell you what's in the quiche, and they'll add some hashtags at the bottom. And then they say, man, I can't figure out why no one shares this. Well, when you put this post together, every single person who knows Meg and sees this likes, comments, and shares. They'll tell Meg what a nice mask she has. And you know what? That's fantastic, because guess what happens Ashley, when you comment on this and tell Meg that you love her mask and you can't wait to try this quiche, do you know what happens to this Facebook post?
It goes up.
It does, because all of your friends get a notification or it shows up in their feed and it says, Ashley commented on this post. Ashley liked this post. And that goes into the algorithm and it gets you more views. Personalizing anything is always a good idea. Now, you can go too far. Nobody needs to know when you're going to the podiatrist on Thursday. Like, that's not a thing. Like, even if you're the spa and you're giving pedicures, they don't need to know that you're going to the podiatrist on Thursday. I'm just saying, you do have to be careful in how you do this. But this is a perfect example of what I would consider a very well done, personalized social media post. And you can do the same thing with your email marketing. You can do the same thing with your website. If your website doesn't have pictures of your location, your store, your people, and you don't have a page that introduces your team and talks about their expertise and their education and what they're doing, you're missing a huge opportunity to personalize your business and help tell your story. I just want to be Steve the cheesemonger because I love cheese. I'm just saying. And that, to me, like, that would be the best job in the world. If I could just do cheese and wine pairings, like, I'd be okay with that.
Come on now, Mike. That's kind of cheesy there.
I'm telling you, I'd be a cheesemonger without a doubt.
I'm joking with you, man. Hey, I totally agree with you.
So it kind of talks a little bit about the way that they put together their cheese pieces, the when people can come and get them. You know, like you said, you look at the bottom of that email and you can actually see that, you know, place your order with Steve the cheesemonger. You put a person's face in there and it's so much more likely for people to engage with it, to like it, because it personalizes whatever the communication is. So we talked about defining your brand identity and making it personal. You know, updating your website, making sure it reflects your brand identity, making sure it includes those personal touches of who you are and why, and make sure that it lives on all your marketing channels, all your communications, and everything you do. The last thing, and I know I'm running short on time, so I'm apologize, but just prepare for uncertainty. If there's anything that 2020 taught us, you know, we know as people, we're not huge fans of change, but we have to make sure that we're prepared. If we have to pivot, if we have to do things differently, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's legislation, no matter what it is, we have to be prepared to do what's best to make sure our businesses succeed and we are and our families are taken care of. So make sure that your operation is as efficient as it can be. Make sure you know what resources are available to you. Your local Chamber of Commerce is a great resource. Your local SBDC coach is a great resource. And I don't see enough people taking advantage of either one of those things, let alone the online resources that are available. You know, we were talking earlier about education. I jokingly call it YouTube University, but YouTube U can teach you a lot of things, especially as a business owner. You can get a lot of things for free if you're willing to do a little bit of research on YouTube and find somebody that you trust that sees things the same way you do, that can help you adjust. And lastly, just make sure that you have a plan and that you know how to execute that plan when things happen. You know, we joked the other day that all public buildings had to have a tornado drill for a tornado. And I jokingly said, when was the last time we had a tornado? And somebody said it was like 1934 or something. I said, well, I'm really happy we're 44. I'm really happy that we're preparing for something that hasn't happened in 80 years. But then they made a really good point. You know, with climate change, with some things that are going on, you look, I mean, it was 70 degrees here yesterday in Arizona. It snowed. I don't know how that happened, but but being prepared is never a bad thing.
Right, but also, Mike, we could have been under a tornado watch yesterday. That's what they said at the beginning of the week. Yeah. So I just wanted you to know that I did prepare you.
You did. I was very well prepared. So those are the 6 things that I would take into account for 2021. I'm sorry, Alyssa, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I apologize. I have to jump here. I'm sorry because I have another meeting. I wanted to say thank you, 1. And number 2, I think that in that preparing for the future, you really hit on, some great points, really primarily including, the online, the viewability online and the accessibility for people to shop and contact you through your website is more important than ever before. And I think absolutely critical for survival as a business as well. So-
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys attending. And yeah, I know we're at the time, so if anybody has to jump off, feel free. I will stick around and answer any questions if there's a Q&A. If anybody needs access to any of the things that were in there, like an email service provider, just so you know, there's a login for you can go. We are a constant contact teaching provider, so you can go there. Just so you know, we do get a cut of the commission if you sign up, but there's also a promo code there to save you 30% off your first 3 months if you need it. But other than that, I'll answer any questions anybody has.
One thing too, Alyssa, before you leave, Mike is presenting again next month. So if there's something that what you heard today or what you have seen over the last 2 months, if there's something else that you want us to touch on, let us know so we can make sure that we're meeting the needs of those in throughout the Lewis County Chamber.
We're also
Which we
practicing what we
actually-
preach, right? Tell us what you want to hear, because we're going to use your input and we're going to make sure we tailor
And-
these to you. So
We did that the other day at the chamber meeting. Alyssa was there. And I was going to talk to you, Mike, afterwards about it, that we do have something that we want to switch out April and May for, but we can talk about it here in a minute.
sure.
Okay, because May is what we have is May when Tim comes back and talks about credit stuff, unless we've got to make a change.
We'll have to check with him. I thought it was June, he said, but I mean, either way, we can make the adjustments and put it
It may
together however
be,
it needs.
yeah, you may be right. It may be, I don't have it in front of me. You may have been March, April, May, and then Tim is
I think
June
so.
and July. Okay,
But anyway,
Happy to do whatever the chamber members need. That's what we're here for.
exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
good to see everybody, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Mike, take care.
Thanks, everybody.
thanks,
Alrighty.
Red, for coming.
You-
Hi, Ray.
Hey, how are you guys? Give Musket a pep.
Hey,
for me.
Rhett.
I will.
I know
Thank
it's
you all.
today, Ashley. How's
What's
everything
that?
going? How's everything going on the project?
It's crazy. It's good. Great.
I look over
But
there and
it's
see
crazy.
equipment moving around, so I know y'all are busy. So that's good.
Yeah. Let me know when you have time to come around about. I told you that. Give me a call.
Okay, well, I'm going to the Irish Fest down the street from you in a little while. So if y'all are around there, probably 4:30, 5 o'clock, I might swing in.
I
Or you're not?
might be actually.
Okay,
If I'm there, the garage door's open. Stop.
alrighty, sure will. All
I'll
right.
see you. I'll
take
see you at
care.
Irish Fest
Thanks now.
tonight.
Oh, you will? All right,
I
good.
will.
All right, bye.
See ya. Any questions or anything else anybody else needs?
It's just the three of us now.
So I'm gonna stop the recording